The Omega Beam. Full power.
Welcome to the Omega Beam number 199. I'm your host, Orren Merton. Boy, it's been a while, hasn't it? We certainly didn't expect our lives to get so busy when we recorded episode 198 that it would be months before our next episode, but life has a tendency to happen regardless of your expectations. However, we did want to end the year with one more episode, so here's our take on the latest MCU movie, The Marvels, and our good friend David Raiklen joins us for the conversation. We also spend some time after that giving a quick beat to some other genre fare that we never got a chance to podcast about as part of a brief wrap-up of 2023. Okay, let's get to it. I am here with Golden and David Raiklen in the last show of 2023 to talk about The Marvels and probably a bit about the year in general. So how are you, David?
I'm doing great. It was a marvelous year for movies and TV shows. One of the best.
I'm sure the people who made The Marvels wish that it had been a little bit better for them specifically. But this is truly one of those cases, in my opinion, I think all of our opinions, where the quality of the movie was not reflected in its box office take.
Yes, that's true. The movie they made was actually exactly what people said that they wanted, which was more fun, character-driven, less epic until it needed to be.
Right.
Superhero story. And that's what they did. They had cool superhero characters having fun interactions. And then when it needed to get epic, it got epic, but it never got out of control. So it really played wonderfully. And it was full of humor, and the action pieces were awesome. And if you did watch Ms. Marvel, the TV show, or you watched, the first Captain Marvel movie a couple of years ago, it all tied together, but you didn't have to watch all of that. So the only thing I can think of why people didn't go out to see it is that the people who hated it ended dominating the conversation, because I don't know, all the people I know who've seen it liked it.
Right. I don't know personally anyone who didn't enjoy the film. Some people I know absolutely loved it. Some people just had a good time. Either one, is completely valid. It was a completely entertaining film, incredibly well acted, well directed. Obviously, the special effects were up at the level you expect from an MCU movie. The writing, the production, acting, really, there's the music. There's nothing to criticize that being subpar. But like you said, the haters, I would even say that the media, I think, the fan media, but any media, I mean, even mainstream news media, they get kind of in love with their own narratives. And I think the narrative is, and this is before the Marvels, but I think the narrative that they had been trying to push was that there is superhero movie fatigue, or that there is Marvel movie fatigue, MCU fatigue.
And I think that's mostly wishful thinking on the part of people who don't like and don't understand superhero movies and want them to fail because they don't like it and they don't understand it, which is incredibly petty. But I sense that there is a wish on the part of people that there would be such a thing as superhero fatigue. And I don't think there is, because I'm loving all of the superhero movies that are good. And right. I'm not loving the ones that aren't good, which is the same as it was 10 years ago.
Right. And of course, the thing is any kind of entertainment, whether we're talking a novel or a video game or a movie, if a movie or a video game or a novel comes out that you personally aren't interested in, the solution is really simple. You just don't see it, don't read it, don't play it. Solved. So
yes, exactly.
Unfortunately,
and this was I don't know what the other it is to not like the movie is full of clever, innovative ideas. Like, I don't want to make this the spoilery part, but in the action sequences, before they even get to the high action, they have this very clever device for getting the characters to all connect up with each other magically.
Right. That was
before they've actually met.
That was a lot of fun. And that's in the trailer. And that is in the trailer. And I think they did that incredibly well. Yeah, the director, I think, unfortunately, she's been getting a lot of flack. And I of course, it wouldn't be because she happens to both be a woman and of color. I'm sure that's not the reason she's getting more flack than another director that would happen to be, say, white and male that has a movie that isn't successful.
Right. And, people usually love team up movies, right? Where different heroes, different characters all get together to fight a big bad. And that's what this is. They just happen to all be girls. They're all powerful. They're all intelligent. They're all badass. They all have, cool powers.
And it makes complete sense that those three would have gravitated together, would have been linked together. Whereas, there was a very legitimate criticism in Endgame. And I enjoyed the moment, but there's a moment where Spider-Man, Peter Parker, hands off, by the way, spoiler for a however many year old movie, but there's a moment where Peter Parker hands off the Infinity Gauntlet to Carol Danvers, to Captain Marvel. And he says, I don't know how you're going to get through all those people. And all the female MCU heroes land all around her and say, it's all right. She's got help. And
That's like the only part of the movie I don't like.
Yeah, I mean,
because the fact everything
total contrived.
Yeah, it's too much.
I mean, I didn't mind it. I get it. They wanted a moment with all the women.
It was a fun moment, and I'm okay with movies doing things that are just fun, interesting moments if they've earned it by having the rest of the movie all hang together. And Barbie was like that, where the Barbie character is in the real world and she meets a real woman at a bus stop. And that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the plot of the Barbie movie. That's just a cool thing that Margot Robbie herself wanted to meet that real life person. And so they made that happen in the movie.
Right.
And that worked for me. I was okay with that.
And even if somebody doesn't respond, it's not like the movie sucks because of those moments. And the reason I brought it up was because the Marvels, it wasn't that, in the sense that these three are connected via their powers in a way that made complete movie sense and was justified and was fantastic.
Right. And they didn't wear out that gag. They did it for a while, and they kept raising the stakes, and it got more complicated and more things were happening. And then it resolved and they went on to something else.
Right.
But one of the criticisms, and I saw this a couple times when it first came out, was that saying that the movie was all over the place. And I don't feel like the movie was all over the place. I felt like it
all
was
over the universe. They traveled a lot.
But
Hey.
I felt like it moved very quickly. The pacing was good. It had a little bit of, slow moments to just kind of take a breath and kept going. And
Right.
It was overall a fun movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of the haters, I think that some people who are so serious about their superhero fare that they just can't, they can't allow lightness. And this movie had a very light touch,
Yes.
There's a Bollywood moment that in world makes all the sense and is fantastic. One of my friends was asking me
Yes, they have a dance number / battle sequence. That's great.
and one of my friends was saying you can't, this is one you don't take seriously, right? It's like, I'm going to go see it. Should I not take it seriously? And I said, look, I'm not going to give you any spoilers. All I'm going to say is a major mover at one point are space kittens. And if that bothers you, you kind of need to like evaluate why. Why is it bothering you? I mean, what can possibly bother someone about that?
Well, for what it's worth, I saw a person put together a clip video that explained in their mind or demonstrated why the movie was not any good. And what they had done is edited all of the comedy beats, all of the jokes together. So it was really fun. You went from one joke to another joke to another joke, and it was like you were watching a comedy.
Mhm.
And this YouTuber was saying that this isn't scary. This isn't awesome. I don't know what this is. And I was so tempted to say that this is comedy. It's
Right,
called comic books for a reason. They're supposed to have a sense of humor.
right. Yeah, exactly. And if you ask any of these people how much of what they're feeling is sexism, they would say, no, it's not. But Shazam was really light and fluffy and funny. I'm referring to the first one.
Yep.
And it people loved it. They were more than happy to see, Zachary Levi just nonstop, prancing around
And mugging and all that. Yes.
yeah, and that's fine. But, three women do it and suddenly it's not the comic, fare that
Yes. Well, this was, more like Shazam or more like, say, the first Tom Holland Spider-Man
right, right.
with a lighter tone than it is, like Endgame, where it's, super serious climactic drama. And I thought that that was exactly what they needed to do. They needed to go, all right, we can have a fun movie. It doesn't have to be serious. I mean, it has serious moments, but I don't know. I think that it's going to perhaps slow down how fast they release superhero movies for a while.
You need to get a little bit more serious, especially in the one where they visit the planet where her spouse is. I mean, that is like a very serious, deep, deep part of the movie.
Yeah, I don't know why people getting so upset about that. And also talking about the reception as we're speaking, the Aquaman movie came out.
Yes, it came out and it did not make a splash.
Right, it did not make a splash. And yet there is no hatred over the fact that it is bombing. There is no joy over the fact that it is bombing. More just like a shrug, like, oh,
Well,
yeah,
you also have the
okay.
fact that they just decided to not report the box office at one point, right?
Well, that was the Marvels that they
Yes.
decided to. Yeah, Disney decided they were going to stop reporting the box office.
Yeah, with Aquaman, they haven't done that though.
No, Warner always tells you how bad their films are doing.
Yes. Well, they don't have a reputation for being infallible, although they, have done okay, right? I mean, they released the Barbie movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody needs to, worry about the executives at Warner Discovery busking on the street for their supper anytime soon. But yeah, it's just, I feel like The Marvels was an incredibly good movie and it just did not get a fair shake.
Yeah, I felt so good walking out of that movie. I mean, if you want a feel-good movie where you enjoy the experience and then when it's over, you feel like, wow, that was good. I had fun. The Marvels is that movie for you.
I feel like I should probably say that I think the actress who plays Ms. Marvel, Iman Vellani, is absolutely spectacular.
She's very charming and has a super expressive face.
Yeah, she does an amazing job. And for those who don't know the story, she grew up loving Ms. Marvel, just dressing up as Ms. Marvel because she loved her so much, got to play Ms. Marvel in the TV shows and the movies in the MCU, and in fact has now written Ms. Marvel as well.
That's a wonderful dream come true.
Yeah.
Although that actually might be part of the formula here. I enjoyed the episodes I saw of Miss Marvel, the TV series, but it didn't capture my attention enough to want to watch all of the episodes. And I'm wondering if Ms. Marvel had been a bigger hit, if that would have helped the movie. I think maybe they were counting on that.
It probably couldn't have hurt. We did watch the entire series. I thought it was incredibly well done. I think it was definitely a show for a teen audience.
Yes.
I think that they did a really wonderful job of using the kind of if in the beginning of the movie, I don't really plan on going into too many spoilers at all, simply because I know that not a ton of people saw the movie. But at the very beginning of the movie, it kind of uses that like animated things going on type of visuals. Like for any of you who saw Scott Pilgrim Against the World years ago, it used video game kind of language, if you will, because that's what Scott Pilgrim was, a video gamer. And it used that kind of visual shorthand drawn on the screen to give you an idea of what was going on in the character's head. And Ms. Marvel, the show, really lent into that. And I think it gave it a freshness and a kind of youth appeal that the more hard-boiled shows like, say, Hawkeye, which I also absolutely loved, and was based on a comic series written by Matt Fraction that, I mean, it won all the Eisners and all the comic awards because it was so amazingly good. And it was the comic series that made me fall in love both with Hawkeye and Matt Fraction, and I was so happy they took a lot of their cues from that series, Pizza Dog Forever. And I think that Ms. Marvel, the series, also really kind of leaned into that comicness. And I think that the character of Ms. Marvel is perfect for that kind of thing. And the enthusiasm of the actress really played into it and played up to it. Brie Larson is great.
She is great, and it shows that she can play comedy really well. Even though she won an Academy Award as a dramatic actress, and I liked that all the characters had a chance to do something that was cool. That they did cool things together, and they did cool things separately. And it wasn't just a repetition of things that they had done before. Like, you could tell that Kamala's powers had gotten more sophisticated and more controlled in the movie because she was generating more complicated, cool things.
Right. And I haven't mentioned the actress. I hope I don't kill her name, Teyona Paris, who played Monica Rambeau, but she was also very good. And I've seen subsequent posts by that actress on Instagram that like Iman Vellani and Brie Larson, she was just so excited to get to play this character and to get to be a superhero and to wear the cool costume. And I think one of the things this movie had was such a sort of exuberance that you don't see in many of the more sort of serious type of superhero movies that try and like justify everything and ground everything. And this was not grounded at all, literally because it was in space, but also figuratively in that it was just kind of wacky, wild, and a good time. That doesn't mean it didn't have stakes, and that doesn't mean it didn't have emotion. But that meant that this was not trying to be a deep film, and that's fine,
So it wasn't it was a fun superhero movie, and that's plenty good for me. I don't need to have it be more serious, although the characters are grown-ups. They try and act like responsible grown-ups.
Right.
So it's this is more of like a family adventure movie, while the Ms. Marvel TV series was more of a teen drama with superheroes.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And I think we need all kinds of superhero movies. I don't think they can't all be Endgame, and they can't all be Ant-Man. And
Yes, and they shouldn't even try, because that's not what I mean. The whole point of the comics is to have or at least the Marvel comics, is to have this huge repertory company of characters that range from just normal everyday people that are the janitors that clean the building that the superheroes live in, to these meta beings that humans can't even comprehend, and everything in between. And that's different episodes, different books explore different aspects of it, but it's all this gigantic universe. And that whole thing about, well, people have had too much of superheroes. No, that's not true, not even close, because there's so much of the universe that we haven't even seen yet. So how can you say that people are tired of something when there's so much that they haven't even seen yet?
If people were tired of it, there would be comics.
Sure. Sure. Plus, I think we've also reached that point where box office makes a lot of news. And of course, it's where a lot of the sort of upfront money is made. And so, of course, that's what people are focused on. And they say that Ms. Marvel was a bomb because it didn't make its budget back in the theaters. But what's coming up is digital sales and streaming on Disney Plus.
Yes.
And a lot of things that are not necessarily as easy to quantify, such as video games. Is this movie going to raise the stature of these three heroes so that video games with them in it are going to get a boost, et cetera, et cetera? And I would just use one quick example. I believe the last episode that we did was on the Dungeons and Dragons movie. And it also disappointed in the box office in that it cost...
Yeah, that's the only place it disappointed.
Yeah, it's another fantastic movie, great reviews. I mean, boy, was that movie reviewed incredibly well. And audience reviews were, audience and critics were just so high. I think they were both in the 90s. But it cost like $250 million to make, and it made 225. So it lost a little money at the box office. That's not counting marketing. They asked Chris Pine recently, promoting something else, hey, was a real D&D fan, was interviewing him, saying, yeah, man, I wish it would have made more money. I would love to see a sequel. And Chris Pine said, oh, they're talking about it. It's not penned or anything yet, but I think it's looking very good. And people were wondering, well, but didn't it lose money? There are so many ways that movie hasn't lost money. It was iTunes and Amazon #1 in digital sales for quite a while. It is still, after much of a year, Paramount Plus's top 5, top 3 streaming movies. It was #1 for many, many months. So how many viewers picked up Paramount Plus for that reason, stayed on Paramount Plus after watching all the Star Treks?
Yes, well, that's tens of millions of people.
Right.
In that sense, the Disney movies, we always thought about them this way, but I think that there's somehow less of a tendency to understand that Disney has kind of specialized in making evergreen family entertainment since the beginning. And whether they intended to do that or not, Walt was the best of all time at doing that. There's things that he did literally 100 years ago that people are still interested in watching in large numbers. And the company is, going in that direction. So the Marvels could turn out to be like Wizard of Oz, that didn't break even at the box office, but 20 years later became the most successful movie of all time. That no one possibly could have imagined that was going to happen.
Right. Yeah, to me, it is way premature to say that the Marvels didn't do, well, I guess you could say it didn't do what they hoped it would do, but it's certainly not a write-off. And I think anyone who's trying to write it off.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine to watch on TV. It's not as exciting as watching it on a big IMAX kind of screen with the giant speakers all around you, but it's still plenty exciting, and it's funny, and it looks beautiful. It's got great cinematography. It's got great design. There's all kinds of, clever new designs. And I mean, even Samuel Jackson is really at his best. He's being, funny and tough, and all the things that he's good at, he lands in this movie.
Right.
I love the kind of kick back. In some ways, he's just so much more laid back than the previous Iron Man series sequences, of those. And it's like, okay, I've been through it all now. So, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm also personally very happy. If I were going to talk about Marvel projects that didn't really move me, I was very, very happy that they more or less pretended Secret Wars just didn't happen.
Yes.
Now, I did watch every episode of that, even though at the very first episode, I was like, I don't know if I can continue with this. But ultimately, I'm a completist, and I just wanted to see the full story. But it never got better. The first one did not grab me, and they never got better. I believe that Samuel L. Jackson, in an interview, they asked him about, how do you feel about Secret Wars or something? I don't remember the exact question, but his answer was, well, I was contractually obligated to do it. I mean, that's not exactly putting it on your reel as something that you want to go to your grave with.
Well, Samuel L. Jackson is the most successful movie star of all time. He's got the biggest total box office. And so, I'm sure he's happy to have another hit, but he's been in lots of hits and lots of flops too. So, my favorite quote from him about the success or failure of the movie, I don't remember which one it was, but it was one of the, the theatrical movies that was panned. And his response was, I cashed the check for that a year ago. I don't care what people think.
Good old Samuel Jackson. So anyway, if anyone listening to this has not seen The Marvels, if it is still playing in a theater near you and you just want to smile, I would really recommend that you catch it. If it's already out of the theaters in your area, I'm sure it's going to be on Disney Plus in the very near future. Give it a watch, especially if you have kids of a certain age. I guarantee you, even if you're sitting there thinking, who are these women? What is this about? Your kids are going to be loving it. I can't wait to show this one, to sit down and show it to my daughter. She's already watching Spidey and His Amazing Friends, and one of those amazing friends is Ms. Marvel. And
oh, great.
She's going to love this when she gets to it.
Well, it's supposed to start streaming on Disney Plus in January, so in a week or so. If it's not in theaters, then it'll be streaming in about a week. And currently streaming on Disney Plus is What If? And that's a great example of how the storytelling style of Marvel works in different media. You can have them work in a comic book. You can have them work in a video game. They work on the big screen. They work on a television, live action, and they work great in animation.
Right. And different people of
both,
different.
kid level like Spidey and Friends animation, and then adult animation. What if?
Yeah, and you can get different things out of it. We are of an age that even if we didn't love it, and if you didn't, I don't know why you wouldn't, but Blade Runner was one of the most seminal movies of the 80s. And I remember as a child seeing it in the theaters and being like, oh my God, this is what is this whole universe that's now been opened up to me? And when I saw the first What If, that was my first thought, like, oh my God, they're doing Blade Runner. This is amazing. This is the best thing in the universe. Now, I'm sure people who are younger or who've seen all of these subsequent science fiction movies that have been influenced by Blade Runner won't necessarily that it's Blade Runner, but they will see their favorite science fiction, or maybe just Guardians of the Galaxy because Nebula is the star. But whatever, they're going to get what they can get out of it. I got what I could get out of it. And I think it's always so fun when things work on multiple levels like that.
Yes. Well, I mean, the what if concept really produced a lot of great stories in the comics, right? Because it's the nature of comics that the characters have to evolve. There's a whole bunch of reasons for that, including that there's a new audience every few years, and there's new creators every few years, even if they're working with these legacy titles. So, What If is just kind of embracing that and saying there's so many different ways that we could have gone with this character, and here is a wild one we think you'll like.
And I think it also helps that they're able to get for voice actors, not all the time, but very often, the actors who played the same.
Oh yeah, they're getting movie stars here. I mean, Taika Waititi is playing Korg, and he's hilarious. And you can just tell that his energy is helping lift the energy of everybody else.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. So
And
before
you got Chris Hemsworth in there. I mean, they're the big stars. Michael Douglas.
and he's someone who's not normally doing voice acting. You don't see him in a lot of Pixar movies because he just loves doing voice acting. Michael Douglas did it because, it's Marvel. So it's pretty clear to anybody who's been following the Omega Beam that we took most of 2023 off for various and sundry reasons.
About childcare.
But I figure it's a good time to do a little bit of a wrap up. We were kind of lost in our little world a lot, but David, you're up on the pulse.
Well, there was a lot of great movies. In fact, there was one week where I saw, what was it? It was like The Marvels, The Boy and the Heron, and Maestro, 3 days in a row. And each one of them was a great movie in a completely different way than the other ones.
Yeah. Wow.
So, when I was talking to the filmmakers at the, Q&A afterwards, it was sort of like I was thinking, I can't even say this was the best movie that I saw this week because this is an incredibly good week. But, yeah, they were all one of the best movies of the year. And I would say that if I had to recommend only one movie out of the whole 2023, see The Boy and the Heron. That's
okay.
Truly
trailers, and they look
greatest movies ever made, I think.
Okay. Well, we definitely have to see that then.
But I won't explain why, because one of the reasons it's great is that it's unique. And if you've seen a Miyazaki movie before, you'll see that there's certain themes, there's certain kinds of designs that kind of echo things that he's done before, but he's definitely got a whole different world here.
Yeah, one thing I can tell you about how interested we are in that one is normally when I'm watching videos and an ad plays, I cannot hit skip ad fast enough. But when that came on, Golden in particular was like, wait, what is this? And we watched the entire trailer. And yeah, it really looks just, I mean, his movies are beautiful. We've seen numerous of them. And even if sometimes we don't get them or I don't get them on first watch, they're always gorgeous and they always draw you in
Yes.
with a very few other.
This is definitely a gorgeous looking movie, and it has some breathtaking moments of just visual splendor. And it also has relatable characters that you can like, as well as bizarre, like mythical kind of characters that it takes some getting used to. That
Right.
but it's almost impossible to explain the movie because it's kind of happening in the real world and on different meta levels at the same time.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like something. We did see some of the big blockbusters, of course. We did see Barbie, which was wonderful. I mean, it was just such a good film, such a fun film. We saw The Flash, which again was a pretty damn good comic book movie.
Yes, it was. It was a really well done comic book movie that didn't, I thought all of it worked if you're into the DC superhero world.
Right,
Yeah, I
right.
mean, you have to have a different kind of criteria because the DC universe doesn't hang together the same way the MCU does.
And it's
It's
gone.
much more of a one shot thing.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons that the DC movies have not necessarily lit the box office on fire, even when they've been good, like The Flash or Blue Beetle, which we saw on Max, and that was really surprisingly, entertaining. And not surprising because I expected it to be terrible, but it's surprising because I'd only ever seen Blue Beetle in animated form. Actually, way back in 2011, I read some Blue Beetle comics, and they were all fine, but they were never my favorite series or anything. But the movie was really well put together and short. We're so used to these superhero films now that are like, 3 hours long, and this one's like 90 minutes in and out, boom. But that's all it needed to be.
Yeah, I'm fine with different length movies. Oppenheimer is 3 hours and it moves very fast. It doesn't seem like it's that long at all. So it can be a long movie, but it can also be completely engrossing and move really fast.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I mean, the opposite of that, and this is a movie we reviewed very well on we both enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. So I'm absolutely not a critic of the Max presentation of Zack Snyder's Justice League. But boy, it's good it's on cable because at 4 hours long, I mean, hitting the pause, taking a break, getting some food, going to the bathroom. I mean, you felt the 4 hours.
Yes, well, that was definitely a different kind of superhero epic, and the Snyder cut for me, the way that I enjoyed it was like a half hour at a time.
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely something that you needed to pace for yourself. I know that there are, Zack Snyder super fans who could probably sit there and watch it, basically take an entire 8 hour day and watch it, back to back twice, and great, but that's not me. I loved it, but that's not me.
So let's see. The big box office hits were in order: Barbie, Super Mario Brothers, Oppenheimer, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Fast X, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We have to mention that one. That was an awesome sequel.
That was amazing. Yeah.
I started watching it and I only made it as far as the first little sequence. and just could not get over just how beautiful it was. And then I had to pause, and I think it took me 2 weeks to come back to finish watching it. But that opening sequence, just telling her story,
Yes.
absolutely breathtakingly beautiful.
It was breathtakingly beautiful, and you could just feel the whole audience was cheering for Spider-Gwen.
Yeah, and the it was just so amazing, and it drew you in. And that was a movie that was actually fairly long, but I had no concept that it was long. One of the things that did bother me deeply about that movie is that I had gone in knowing absolutely nothing, and I was phenomenally surprised and upset that it was a cliffhanger.
Well, they said it was going to be a trilogy back with the first one.
Yeah, I missed that completely. And so I was really looking forward to the conclusion and having,
Beyond the Spider-Verse 2025.
right. I was like, oh, come on, really? Oh, but yeah, I mean, that's it. That's, my only complaint is I wanted more. So that's not really a complaint. And
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was phenomenal. I mean, what a phenomenal way to end one of the more entertaining and moving and well put together trilogies in the MCU. I thought it was perfect. And not only that, but so as we all know, or if you don't know, well, now we're telling you that James Gunn is taking over the DCU, and his first movie will be out in 2005. Although I think at the end of the year, he said the cartoon of the Creature Commandos is coming out.
Yeah, I think that the TV show is going to come out first.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense because normally TV is produced a lot faster than movies.
Yeah. So speaking of James Gunn and his love of DC, apparently a long, long time before the MCU, when he was still doing things like Super, people were asking what he wanted to do. And he mentioned a very, very obscure independent comic on DC's label Vertigo by Grant Morrison called We Three. And it was very, very few comics have ever brought me to tears, but We Three did. And it was so amazing and it was wonderful. And he said, I want to do We Three. And Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is as close as we're ever going to get to We Three. Because We Three is about three animals that have been sort of cyberneticized and roboticized and turned into killers. And eventually they turn on their killers and try and run away and escape because all they want is to live. They just want to live lives alone. And those three friends that Rocket makes are as close to the characters in We Three as he could get without risking copyright infringement. And it is amazing and it is beautiful and it is fantastic. And I have to imagine that Grant Morrison was giving him just a standing ovation for finally making something of this little tiny comic that 8 people read and we probably all absolutely adored and remember to this day. But yeah, Guardians moved me on a million levels and it's so great. And I'm so glad that James Gunn's going to be in charge of the DCU in the future.
Yes, I think that it's going to probably be a good run, but we'll just have to see because directing a movie is a big job, and running a movie studio is also a big job. And even though he's got help, he's got a lot on his plate. So I'm going to give him some time and a little slack because he's doing a lot. Oh, and speaking of people who've done a lot, another charming, entertaining family action adventure movie is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's actually a pretty good movie.
I just started it.
Yeah, especially those opening sequences are just a perfect replication of the vibe and the look and the kind of story that we got back in our first Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm not much further than that right now in the movie, but it definitely felt like what I would have expected from after the first Raiders.
Yes, and it's the only one besides the first one that has that feel. So, kudos to James Mangold on making not only a good movie, but this is the first one that actually feels like it's a sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark, because it has that same, 1940s serial adventure vibe, only the story is better and the actors are better and the visual effects are better.
Way Orren to actually want to watch it.
Yeah, maybe. I have to say, I loved the movies in the day, but I can't say that it's one that moves me. But I'm glad to hear that it's that good. We should probably
Now again, it's not a 10, but it's a really good movie. I mean, this was a wonderful year for movies. What you were saying?
I was just going to say that we should probably wrap it up here. But
yes, perfect.
For those of you who have listened to all of our 2023 episodes, we're definitely going to
try to have more than the next year. It's just they'll probably be when they're already on one of the streaming platforms.
Yeah, we are going to definitely revamp things and try and have them done more regularly. And hopefully 2024 will be a good year for all of us. It'll be a good year for you. It'll be a good year for the Omega Beam.
Yes. So happy holidays, a bright, shiny, happy new year to everybody.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you and take it easy. And we will catch you next time. And that's it for this episode. You can find the show notes at theomegabeam.com/199. If you liked this episode, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Your reviews help people who like this stuff find our podcast. If you have any comments or suggestions, please drop us a line at info@theomegabeam.com. If you've kept up with us through our irregular schedule this year, thank you very much, and we'll be back early next year with some changes and every intention of a far more regular schedule. Have a great new year, be good to yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.
The Omega Beam. Full